Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Dave, and we are PVD Horror. I am joined here with my co-host Brandon, and we are going to do a little get to know you episode today, and we're going to put the big spotlight on Brandon.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming because I think like with 3 seasons now,
Yeah.
and we've been doing this for a few years, and just running PPD Horror, I don't think people really know like a lot about us as much as as long as like the episodes have gone on, we haven't really given a lot of details on and things in our lives or things that we touched on like things here and there, but like it never went into full detail. So I was like, we should probably do something and kind of let people into our world and know a little bit about us. So
Absolutely. So, I think that one of the things that people know about you if they've been listening is um, most one of the things you've been pretty open about is how you got your like first exposure to horror. We've talked about that a number of times. I don't know if you want to like briefly want to touch on that.
yeah. So like I always said, my introduction to horror was from my grandmother. And so that was something that like we watched horror films together, and that was just like always like a great moment in time. Like me and my aunts, but my mom and my dad, they weren't really big horror fans. So just going over my grandmother's house and just watching certain films, it was always great. And like my first film was Waxworks. So
Oh,
at a young age, I like just watching that type of movie with you got werewolves, vampires, everything just wrapped up into one, and it was nuts, and so I was just hooked from that point on. So
Waxworks.
yeah,
Nice.
classic film.
What was the first film that you saw in theaters, horror film?
The first horror film I had seen in theaters was Child's Play 2. So
Oh, you saw that in theaters?
yeah, because I remember I was a big Chucky fan, and so I remember I've been at my grandmother's house one Sunday afternoon. Like we would go over every Sunday for like dinner and everything like that. I remember it as clear as day, like it was yesterday, man. I was in the living room and the TV was on, and then this ad just came on TV where it just showed the Jack in the Box, and I
Yeah.
was looking, I'm like, what is this? Like, you know what I mean? Like at this time, I'm like 5 or something. You know what I mean? I'm like, what the hell is this? And then it's like, and it's like this foot just steps on it and goes, sorry, Chucky's back, man. I had lost my shit. I was running around the house. They're like, what the hell are you doing? And I'm like, Chucky's back. And they're like, what are you talking about? Chucky's back. And I was just like, oh shit.
Yeah.
So that was probably like the first movie that my mom had taken me to the theaters to see. And I think that was the last horror movie I'd seen. So it was me and my aunt and my mom. So I was able to see Child's Play 2 in the theaters. And, that's definitely one of those films where you can sit there and say, I think this one can probably be better than the first one.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, that's my favorite Child's Play.
yeah.
And that's pretty cool being able to see that one in the theater. I didn't get that pleasure, but
Yeah.
it's interesting because Child's Play 2 also, I think it's interesting for me and you because it has like that foster family dynamic. And then with the work that we do, I always felt like maybe that's why I kind of like that movie so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That film was definitely a classic and still holds up till today.
yeah, absolutely. Hey, I gotta ask you though. So your parents don't like horror or didn't
No.
like horror when you're growing up. What do they think about the fact that you do a horror podcast and the horror movie nights? What are their thoughts about that?
When my mom and dad first found out, they was just like, "Oh God, that stuff." But they always knew that it was a connection that I had with my grandmother and everything like that. So they're really supportive about it and everything. So they're cool. So my
Yeah.
dad's that horror shit.
Yeah, that's funny. I didn't even think about that, but like the times I've talked to your dad, it wasn't until the very last time at your wedding that he finally was telling people that we have a podcast. But all
Yeah,
the other times, it was always like, oh, like Dave from fantasy football. Like he would
yeah,
never acknowledge that we did the podcast together. So that's kind of funny.
yeah.
Let me ask your opinion. So I know I have a feeling I already know this, but for everybody else, do you like watching movies at home or in the theater?
Both. I like to go out to the theater and watch whatever is new at the time, because it's time that I get to spend with my kids or my wife. So it's always cool. And like even before, I would just go to the movies. I would go to the movies alone to kind of like kill time when my kids were younger, because I would drop one kid off at school at the opposite end of state, you know what I mean, and have to drive
Mhm.
to the other spot. So for everybody out there, Rhode Island's really small, so I would have to drive from Coventry all the way to East Providence, you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I would sit there and I would just go to Regal or Showcase. That's when we had Movie Pass, and I would just sit there and just watch so many fucking movies alone or whatever, or whatever. But I enjoy the theater and I enjoy being at home. It's the same. I have 86-inch TV with freaking
yes,
Bose surround sound system. So I've always made my home theater system like great quality.
yeah.
So I love both places.
Yeah, I got to glimpse of your TV when I dropped something off at your house, and I was like, "Damn, that thing is crazy! It takes up a
Uh,
whole wall. It's insane." What's your favorite thing to eat while you're at a theater?
I have to just go with the straight popcorn, with some butter and I get a large Sprite, put some vanilla in there. I was sitting there, I was laughing because I was sitting there, like me and my kids and my wife, we were just looking at like the menu and I'm like, what the fuck eats hot dogs at the theater? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
It's like a lot of random shit, but like, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm like, hey, if it's for something's for everybody there, but I've noticed they have the pizzas and everything now.
yep.
I'm like, all weird things,
Chicken
but
fingers, nachos.
yeah.
See, I'm with the thing that's going to have the longevity. I want to like eat it as far into the movie as possible. So that's why
Yeah.
popcorn's and you can stretch it out.
Yep.
So let me ask you, other than horror movies, what other types of films do you like?
I'm a big comedy guy, action films. I love all films. That's a thing. And so it's like, it sucks because it's like we just focus on horror, but like I'm a big movie fan overall. And so but horror is like one of my all my favorite genres. But I love all films the same.
Yeah. Do you have any favorites non-horror genre?
One of my favorite films, I like Goodfellas.
Yeah.
Uh, Shit, man. Comedy movies, anything like the Wayne's Brothers release, Don't Be a Menace, The South Central, I Drink It,
Yeah.
Menace to Society, Boys in the Hood. I grew up on a lot of films, and so it's just, I love everything. So it's like my movie collection is just fucking crazy. I have, it goes from every genre. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's
Tell people about that. You have a pretty extensive like physical copy collection.
Yeah, I've been taking a break on it because it's just like it just came to the point where it's just like I had so many damn shelves and they just kept on filling them up and it just kept on becoming every time I would put another piece up, I would be like, all right, you kind of got stuck on like, okay, I gotta fill this part up because this part's bare. I need more movies. I need more movies.
Yeah.
And it was like I remember like when physical media was just like so crazy. I would be at Best Buy just buying albums, movies, games, like every Tuesday. It wouldn't even matter. Like even like I listen to all types of music. I would just sit there and leave with whatever albums that came out, whatever movie released that day. And that's the thing, man. I just love it. But I would always sit there and say, hey man, streaming's not for me. And then it started to get to that point where I was just like, all right, I have too much. I have
Yeah.
too much
Yeah.
going on, and then like certain streaming shit now everything has a streaming service. It's actually funny because like years ago when we worked at the group home, me and Steve Vicino, we were sitting there talking and we were like, damn, there's always nothing on cable. Like we should make like a service provider that just has like certain things that people like. And
You
then
guys invented streaming.
now look at this shit. This is crazy. So it was like, you know what I mean? Like we were talking about having packages, like you would just pay for certain channels that you would want because it was like, at that time you would just watch Sports Center or whatever, or certain other things. And then now it's just out of hand, you know what I mean? You
Yeah.
pay so much money for a bunch of shit. But hey, a lot of things have gotten streaming right. I think Tubi has definitely opened the door, opened the light for a lot of people to say, okay, fine. Like this, they have a lot of cool movies. You have Full Moon has their own streaming service,
Yep.
Shutter, Screenbox. I think they're
Two
all doing it the right way.
Tubi was like the first like free streaming one that was like, oh, this can work and still like have commercials, and it
Yeah,
like doesn't distract me so much that I'm like, this sucks, you know. And
yeah,
it's more about the kind of movies that you have available than that aspect, I guess.
yeah. Because that was the thing. I remember we went to your house. This was a long time ago. What was it, like 2018 or something?
When
And
around St. Patrick's Day, was that?
yeah, and then you guys didn't know what Tubi was, and I was like, "You
Yeah,
guys ever heard about Tubi?" And they're like, "No." And at this time, not a lot of people were out there that had it, you know. So, I was like, "Yeah, look at this app." Like, I was like showing you guys like on my phone. I'm like, "Look at all these fucking movies." You're like, "Oh my god!" And so I was just like, "Yeah, Tubi." And now look at it now.
yeah.
It's so much bigger, and that's all the horror community talks about now.
You got, yeah, I remember you were like, it's got Oogie Boogie on. Is that what it's called? You know what I'm
Yeah,
talking about? The
and
trilogy of terror or whatever it was.
yeah,
Yeah,
yep,
you're like, it's got that on it. And now it's literally got everything.
yeah.
So you collect physical media like Blu-ray, DVD. Do you collect anything else?
I was big into like horror collectibles and stuff. I would get all the masks and everything like that, and a lot of the figures and stuff like that. And so, like the same thing with the movies. I kind of ran out of space. I just moved into a new house, so I'm sitting there still trying to get everything right. So that's why a lot of my horror and my collectibles and my movies are in the basement until we kind of can figure out like a space that I can sit there and have everything set up. So it's like, what I mean,
Yeah.
at this point in time, I just taking a break, but I want to get back into that stuff, because before I was just like, man, I want to have like this big horror office, like at my old house before I had an office. I had everything set up, and then so it would be like, oh man, I want to decorate this the way I want to, and it's so cool because now, like I was talking about the Jason mask, I remember like going as Jason when I was a kid for Halloween, and we always had those cheap ass white masks.
Yeah. The
So
Dollar
it's
Tree ones.
yeah, so it's like cool, the little plastic flimsy one. I remember I would be like Jason like every other year, and I would have the little glow in the dark mask, or I would have something else, and it was something else, and just had a Jason mask on top of it. It was like a ninja with a Jason mask. so so it just came to that point. Now you look at it like, damn, like now we have all these NECA masks or everybody making their own mask. It's really cool because it's like, damn, we never had so much realistic shit,
Hmm.
like, what I mean, as we did growing up. Or like the little fake Freddy gloves and shit.
I love it and I hate it. I love that there's all this stuff. So if you like you love something, you're going to be able to get a pretty like good looking
Yeah.
version of it. I
Mhm.
hate how it's mass produced though.
Yeah.
And like, it kind of loses some of its appeal. I kind of like when something's a little bit hard to find, but
Yeah.
but just easy enough where I can still get it if I really tried hard enough.
I actually ran across because like one of the old NECA masks. So I remember it was at Toyville. So I had gone to Toyville and I had purchased the Jason mask there years ago, and it was
The Freddy
actually
versus Jason one, right?
and that one's not they don't even make it anymore. So I was sitting there, but I had these issues with it because I was looking at it and I noticed like the strap was kind of like loose on it. And then so I messaged the guy and I'm like, dude, like this box was open. And he was just like, oh, I can't change anything. And he's like, oh, I can give you a new one. You can come pick it up. And so I had gone in and I was just like, wait, this is a totally different mask. And then so I was looking online and it was like how they don't make it anymore. I was like, fuck it. I guess I'll like chalk it up and just like keep this mask then.
Yeah.
Because like if you look close, you can see all like the Freddy scratches like on that mask.
And I've literally never seen that mask other than from your
Yeah,
collection. It's like the one behind me is that
everywhere.
one is like the early version of it, and
Yep.
then they remade it. They like redid it and re-released it, and it has like more blood on it.
Yeah.
So I cracked that one accidentally, but I'm like I'm not gonna toss it or get rid of it because now you
Mhm.
can't get that version of it.
Yeah.
So speaking of masks and costumes,
Mhm.
you've become pretty infamous for doing some pretty elaborate costumes more recently for Halloween within the past few years. But I was
Yeah.
curious, do you have a favorite costume that you've done or one that was so ridiculous that it's like noteworthy?
Uh, I want to say a few years ago was when I did Victor Pascal from Pet Cemetery. I thought
Yeah.
that was pretty cool because at the time my wife had put all like the guts and everything in my head, and I thought it was cool because at that time too it was just like a few months later we had him on the show. We
Yep.
had Brad Greenquist on the show and did an interview with him. I was like, dude, I was due for Halloween. so, so it's like it's funny because um in the reboot, they actually casted a African American guy to play Victor Pascal in that terrible reboot. But um, it is what it is. But I've always enjoyed that role, and that role's always like creeped me out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That character was just always weird. He didn't have a long presence in that film, but it stuck with you.
Yep.
You know,
It was
and
just enough.
yeah, definitely just fucked you up. So I was just like, all right, that one's cool. And then that was the grabber this year. So, like I said, but I think the putting more creativity and more time and effort into the costumes have definitely been much better.
How about your Teen Wolf one? You didn't mention that.
Oh shit! I forgot I was. Yeah, I forgot. I was the little Michael J. Fox Teen Wolves that year. That was a good one too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you sent me a photo and you were like just covered in fur. I was like, that's pretty awesome. So you went from it's like because you went from being a kid and
Mhm.
doing like just what you could get your hands on, now it just feels so much more special being able to like create like a really authentic looking thing.
Yeah, it's funny now because it's like me and my wife. She's always like, "Hey, we're gonna plan for next year." I'm like, hey, "All right, I don't know yet." So it's just
Yeah.
like I have her; she's into it too.
Yep.
So it's cool.
And she did Pearl, right? Not Pearl, Maxine.
Maxine, yeah,
Yeah.
and then the a few years ago she did from Creep Show, Sam, the Indian guy.
Oh yeah. I don't
Yeah,
think I saw that picture.
yeah. She only wore it for a little bit because it ended up like it looked straight, but she was just like, I don't want to wear it and it was like it was during COVID too,
Yeah.
so like like that Halloween wasn't that crazy, so
Yeah.
it was the same. Yeah, it was Victor Pascal. So
What's your typical Halloween look like? What do you like to do?
we have kids, so we get everyone dressed up, and then we just go probably like to some of the coolest towns and stuff like that they have out there. We wanted to go to Salem this year, but we know it's all busy, and so with everything being backed up, it was just like, we'll pass on it. But that was one thing that I wanted to do is kind of like take them trick or treating in the town in Salem, like in a little
That'd be
area,
cool. Yeah.
kind of do that. But yeah, just take the kids out, have a good time, and then come home and then watch horror movies. So have a marathon of Michael Myers films or
Yeah.
whoever's out there.
So outside of horror, what are your other hobbies and interests?
My other hobbies, I don't game as much as I usually do, but I love to play video games. I'm playing the new Resident Evil 4 remake right now, so
Mhm.
that's really good. So yeah, like I'm into gaming. I'm not online as much as I used to, so I gotta probably like get back on that. But over the years, after the pandemic, I really got into like physical, like going to the gym more, doing stuff and running. Been doing some 5Ks and shit like that, and so definitely just focusing on that. Getting my health better. Because I know when we started off, I weighed what like 225 or something like that, and I got down to like 188. So
Oh,
it was
nice. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it was like, all right, I gotta kind of kick some shit into gear because after that pandemic, I was just like, fuck that. Like I had high blood pressure, and then so I got to a point where I was on medication, and I got to a point where I'm not on that shit anymore. So I was just like, that was cool. So it was a big goal for me to kind of like bring down my weight and being more active and stuff like that. So
Was
running.
that the thing that really made you want to lose weight? Was the high blood pressure and just to kind of get into that journey?
It was just the factors after that pandemic, and then just kind of like looking at some of the pictures, and I'm just like, man, fuck this shit. And then it was some of the high blood pressure stuff too,
Yeah.
but once I got going, I was just like, all right, like it got to the point where it was just like, hey, this could be an option if you continue to keep doing it. I was just like, all right, yeah, it definitely pushed me, and so that was just something that I was able to kind of keep going. What I mean, having goals. I had gotten the Peloton as soon as the gyms opened back up. I was getting I got like the Peloton workout app, and I would sit there and go to the gym, take the classes on my phone, and then like few months later, I ended up buying the bike myself, and then I had the Peloton bike at home. I now have the treadmill, so I have those two. So it's just something I've kind of like gotten into a zone of like just doing, because that's like a goal. Like, even like my job, they had this step competition.
Yeah.
So it was like a team. Like, man, I put in at least like 30,000 steps or more a day. So,
Jeez.
you know what I mean? So it was just like to the point where it just became normal. I was just like, all right, because I would just be like, okay, well, I got my 30,000 in and stop. And now it's just like I just continue to keep doing it. Like even when I'm at work, like as I work overnights.
Yep.
I'm like always on the move, just walking and shit, just getting that my steps in. So that's what I love to do.
You're training for the zombie apocalypse in case you have to outrun some zombies,
Getting ready.
or outrun Jason in the slasher film. Who knows? Um, so I guess we can disappoint everybody. You can tell them your favorite sports teams.
So in basketball, me and you, we have this big rivalry. So I'm a Lakers fan and he's a Celtics fan.
Yeah.
So that's always been something that's been good. I'm not really a hometown guy. So I'm never been like a Patriots fan or a Celtics fan or anything like that. I don't really mind the Bruins or whatever like that. But because I'm not, I like to go like to the Providence Bruins
Yeah.
games to watch that stuff, like local stuff. But growing up, my uncle was a big Lakers fan, so I remember like being young and I just always been into the Lakers. And but the thing is, for being from Rhode Island, my dad had season tickets for the Patriots. You know what I mean? But for years, these teams were never great. You know what I mean? They were like, like to the point that just stopped. They had all those championships, but there was a while the Patriots and the Celtics, they weren't great. I would go to the boys club and they would sit there and hand tickets out, or regular people's jobs. They would give away tickets to
Yeah.
the Celtics team to the games and stuff. Like nobody was going. Rick Fox came to the boys club trying to bring kids to come to the game.
Please come. Please
No
come.
one was going to these games.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, fine, you get the big three, and then everyone's a fan. Every ticket it's full. You can't $100 at the top. Like it's the same thing with the Patriots. Tom Brady, and it's all bandwagon shit. So
Well, I've been a fan since day one, since
uh,
literally since I started watching. But yeah, sure, there are definitely a bunch of people who jumped on
yeah,
late in the game, took glory. But I say that about Lakers fans. I mean, I think people
oh,
became
definitely,
Lakers because
yeah,
of like their dynasty. But so I know that like it's funny because your dad is big into sports and
hmm,
he likes the gambling aspect of it. I think he likes like
yeah,
more like just that like the banter and stuff like that you can have with your friends. Like when
yep,
he did the Madness bracket, he does
hmm.
the fantasy football. So like I feel like it's probably always kind of been around you, just like that shit talking about sports and teams and stuff like that.
But here's the kicker though. So the real thing is that me and my grandmother were actually Lakers fans together at the same time when Shaq and Kobe were together. I'm a big Kobe fan. She was a Shaq fan. So when that whole shit went down with Shaq and Kobe and then Shaq left, my grandmother left and said, I'm leaving. She says, I'm going with Shaq. Fuck you and Kobe. I'm like, oh, word? Okay, cool. So, so I remember when he went to the Heat and then they won, and she goes, we got a ring. We got the ring. Whatever. And then, so when Kobe had gotten his, I was just like, yeah, this is for you.
So Brandon, you mentioned like how we're from Rhode Island,
Yep.
and but you have some family in Arizona. So
Yep.
like you obviously you were born in Rhode Island, but like what's your relationship like with Arizona? Because I know you go and visit family there frequently.
Oh, Arizona is pretty cool. So my mom and dad had moved down to Arizona like right after I graduated from high school. They went down there. My aunt had moved down to Arizona because her husband lived in the Air Force, and then so it was like a easy transition. I would always go and visit down the years, so I had gone and lived down there for about a year and a half. So it was always cool. So Arizona's cool. And I had shouted out the dudes that run Terra Trader. I see what they got going down in Chandler. Those guys are definitely killing it down there. They got their everyday like pop-up shop there. And so that's pretty cool. So, it wasn't really a big horror town before, but I think those guys are definitely kind of like bringing it down there, kind of like what we're doing in Rhode Island.
Awesome. Awesome. And when you went, didn't you go to some filming locations?
Yeah, so downtown is they have right downtown, right near the Suns Arena. Um the hotel, like, well, the big apartment complex from the beginning of Psycho. It's right
Oh
in
yeah.
the
Yep.
corner from the Suns Arena. And I'm pretty sure, what was it? The movie with David Arquette with the fucking bugs and the spiders and shit.
Eight-legged freaks. Was that?
Yes, yes, yep. I had gone down there into that ranch that's
Yeah.
over there. So it was pretty cool. So they have a lot of stuff. There's a lot more stuff filmed down there that I want to like kind of cross off the list to go check out.
Nice. Do you prefer Arizona or Rhode Island?
Rhode Island, because it was just so used to it. Arizona, like at that time when I lived down there, wasn't really much going on. But then now it's start. I think like the first Super Bowl when the Patriots had gone down,
Mhm.
that's what transitioned a lot more on the go stuff. Like started building more, more job opportunities for
Yeah.
people. And so it's definitely a cool spot. So I say Rhode Island now, but like I can do both. Like I said, I couldn't live there before, but like if I had the opportunity to go there now and I have my kids to go, then I would. But
Maybe it's your retirement spot down the road.
yeah,
Who knows?
yeah. Brian had moved down there, so it's cool
Yeah.
when I go down there. I'm able to visit him and stuff like that. So I think it's just all about. It was at that point I had to start over. You know what I mean? And then
Mhm.
being that just graduating high school and then being in the first year of college, it was like starting over and not knowing anybody. It was just kind of weird. It was like
Yeah.
him just like, and
Yeah.
then a lot of people that I met were weird, and I'm just like, yeah, no, so it's not my crowd. Uh,
So let me ask you this. We know how you got into horror.
yeah.
What keeps you into horror?
What keeps me into horror is like I said, just my I like the same thing I did with my grandmother. I now do with my kids. My kids are big into horror. They're always like, Dad, what's the new horror movie that's coming out? This movie's coming out. Can we go see that? Oh, did you see this new one? They're always sending me like movies now or something like that, and then we'll watch them when they come over. And so it's just that family dynamic of just keeping it going. So
It's like a bonding point for you.
yeah, definitely. It was always something for me that kept me out of trouble.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of the same for them now. They come over and it's just like we're able to chill. Like, like for just going to see those Scream movies together. That's big because Scream 1, 2, and 3, I didn't see any of those in the theater or 4. The first Scream film that I seen in the theater was the 5 and 6.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, so I never seen the other ones in theater. So seeing those with those guys with my kids, it was cool because they're really big into Scream. So
Yeah. You know, your kids get to go to a lot of our events
yeah,
and they kind of, they'll help, but a lot of times they're kind of spectating. And
yeah.
I was just kind of curious, do they ever talk about the events or like just their thoughts about the fact that you do like, we've done conventions, the movie nights,
Yeah.
all different stuff. Like, do they ever talk about it?
Yeah, they talk about it. They always laugh. They go, "Oh, PVD horror," you know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
before they would say, "Oh," because I remember when we first started with the podcast, they're like, "Oh, PVD horror," like when we would record, when you guys came over and everything like that. But I think that like as they've grown and we've grown, they start to realize like how cool and everything is getting now. Like they're like, "Oh," like and they're starting to see like the business side of things,
Sure.
like when we're sitting there doing stuff. So I think that they think it's really cool. So like even like the pop up, like you said, when it comes to the pop ups and everything like that, they realize and how many people come out to our events and how people enjoy it, and so they're like, oh, that's pretty cool. So
I think it's cool that they can come and they want to come
yeah,
because like it's one thing for us to like talk to our family and friends about the events, but like when somebody actually comes and sees like all right, so for example, we just did the screening at the Park Ave Theater in
yeah,
Cranston. We did the thing.
hmm
it's hard for me to really like give someone a real impression of like how cool it was that we had such a large turnout for that. Like
Yeah.
I can tell people like, oh, we had a big turnout, but if they didn't see it, they're not going to really get the magnitude. Like it was a lot of people there, and they
Yeah.
were excited about seeing the thing, and
Hmm.
that's just awesome. And I think it's great that your kids got to see that and kind of see people respond to it.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. It was like you said, it was a great event, and even like you said, because they enjoy going to the conventions and stuff with us, and so
Yeah.
it's like at the same time, it's like we're just building our own community here, and so I think they're just happy to be a part of it, to come and help out when they can.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I think about like what that message that sends to them too. Like they probably are going to be like, when they get older, it'll be interesting to see like what they're going to get started. Cause now they can see like
Hmm.
it's, things can, if you just make the efforts, things can go from like just being a random statement to actually, happening. So I think that's pretty cool for them.
Yeah.
Um, tell us something that people may not know about you.
Something they may not know about me. Uh, I don't know. Well, my main thing was like, I have sickle cell anemia. And so, it's a lot of people like, but a lot of other people may not know. But growing up, it's like it's a blood disease where, sometimes I get caused certain pains and everything like that. And it just goes a certain way. It sucked growing up because I would be in the hospital. I would be hospitalized for a while just until the pain passes with pain meds. And so the thing is, it's like even at my jobs or playing like sports or doing everything, like people would always say, "Man, I never knew you had that. I never knew you had it because you're not as like affected as like other people." And it's just because, and that's what kind of pushes me to kind of like do the things I do, because certain people be like, "Oh, you can't play sports, or you can't do this, and you can't do that." And I'm just like, watch me do all this stuff,
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? And so it's just like, or just live in a normal life. Sometimes it sucks because I see people that have it worse than me, but that was one thing. It was crazy because I had met a lot. I had gone to a camp when I was younger and met a lot of kids that had it. And so,
Your brother has it too, right?
yeah, he has it. So that was the first time, like as soon as I was discharged from the hospital when I was diagnosed with it, I had gone home and my brother had a crisis the same night. So it was just like, it was weird because it happened in my legs and I had to learn how to like walk again, like from the pain and everything. So it was like a while I couldn't fucking walk. And so I just remember just that shooting pain in my legs. And so I get in my legs and my arms, but it was just hard because you kind of like grew up and you're like, damn, like I just want to live like a normal life. And then I would kind of look at it and I had seen like some stars had it. Like I said, Prodigy from Mobb Deep
Yeah.
had it. T-Boz from TLC had it. And a lot of sports players now today have it, guys in the NFL. So, just to see them push through and kind of still be able to do it is great. And it kind of keeps like kids like when I was younger to look up at them like, wow, I can probably live a normal life.
Yeah. I think another thing that people might not know about you is I just mentioned it. You have a brother and you guys have the most confusing name scenario.
Yeah, his name is Brandin and my name's Brandon. And so this is what happens when I was able to name him when I was younger. I told him I saved his life because that my aunts and everyone were throwing out like some weird ass names. And I was just like, no, his name's gonna be Brendan. It was like, okay. And at this time, I had a puppy and her name was Brandy.
Oh my God. And he looks just like you,
Yeah.
which I'm sure when you guys were younger, you probably looked even more similar.
It would just be crazy because we would just sit there and be in the house. Like one kid would do something like Brendan. I'm like, I'm not him. Like it's just Brandon. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh shit.
And another thing that people don't know about you, so I'm going to just put all this stuff out there. Your family is
Hmm.
huge,
Yeah.
and just kind of keep every time I turn around, you're related to somebody else,
Yep.
or you discover a new cousin
Yeah.
in a random place. Which I mean, we can tell people, like, didn't that just happen with Wayne from Death Drop Gorgeous?
Yeah, we're actually cousins. I kind of put that together because I had asked him years ago when we had first met at Revival. I was like, dude, like, oh, because he was like, yeah, I'm Cape Verdean. And I was just like, well, you related to this person? He was, I think so. And then like we didn't go into it a little bit more, but we just kind of left it. We always kind of like knew like we were kind of there. And then my dad was just like at a when we were out that night, my dad was like, "Yeah, you guys are cousins." And I'm like, "Yes, it's crazy. That's how life is, dude." Here's a crazy story though. Here's one I really don't tell a lot of people, but I was out at like a club one night with my friends, and then so I'm sitting there talking with this girl, and then we're sitting there like nothing happened though. So I'm sitting there talking, and we exchange numbers, and I go home, and then so she's on the phone, and I called her or something, and she goes, "Well, I got something to tell you." And then so she was like, "Yeah, we're cousins." And I was like,
Oh
"What are
my
you talking
God.
about?" But nothing happened. Like all we were doing was talking. And then so it was funny. She's like, "Yeah, you guys are cousins." And but that's how crazy it is. Rhode Island's so small, and I have like a really, really big fucking family. So
Yeah, but your lineage is also like part of Rhode Island. There's
mhm,
a street in Providence named after one of your family members. Your dad
yeah,
was, I know you told me a long time ago, and your dad was giving me like the brief history on it. And it's very close to where you got married, actually. It was like
it's
right.
actually the street. It's the same street I got married on. So
Yes.
it's called
Yep.
Alves Way. So it's over on Fox Point. So a long time ago, when the Cape Verdeans came over to Rhode Island, everyone's kind of settled over in the Fox Point area. And so over the years now, a lot of people sold their property. So that church where I actually got married at, my family, the Alves house was in that parking lot. And so they wanted to buy the house, and then like my family wouldn't budge because all other Cape Verdeans sold their land. And so they end up coming to a good deal with like the church and everything like that. So they named the street after us, after my mom's family. And from there, you know what I mean? So that was this Alves Way. That's where I was
Yeah.
that my the wedding was. So that church. So they were happy to do that. So they're like, "Oh, your family." I'm
My
like, yeah.
favorite section of Providence too. I love the Fox Point area. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so we actually have if you look on YouTube, there's actually a documentary of Cape Verdean. So and it has all that stuff on there. So the name of the documentary is called Some Funny Looking Puerto Rican.
Huh.
So yeah, so and then my family's all in there. So they have a lot of like interviews with everyone from my
Oh,
family
that's cool.
and everything like that. And then you can see like my grandma. My grandmother was actually at the ceremony when they were like doing the for the street, changing the name and stuff. So
Very
it was cool.
cool.
It was a cool thing to look back on.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a little bit about like PVD horror.
Yep.
And I think people kind of have who have followed this journey with us, they kind of saw where we started and they've seen us evolve.
Yep.
And we've had some cool things happen over the periods of time.
Mhm.
So I'm just curious for you, what were some of the highlights? And unless this is something you're not comfortable answering, what were maybe some of the low points?
All right. So some of the highlights were, what I mean, just building this community, this horror community in Rhode Island. So kind of like putting everything together where people just come out and have a good time. Like everyone's accepted. Like, there's a lot of people. It doesn't matter what color you are, if you're gay or anything like that. Everybody comes out. It's a community. They have a good time. It's a safe space for everyone, and everyone's accepted. You know what I mean? So like me and you talked about that a long time ago. Just like when you talked about like being a horror fan, you didn't have too many friends that were horror fans, and you were kind of like you felt like you had to keep it to yourself. So now it's like, okay, like the same thing was for me. It was just like not a lot of people liked horror films like that unless it was like something commercialized or something like that. But they really didn't talk about it as much, And so it was able to be like, hey, well, you like this movie? Oh, I like that movie too. Oh, and then it just turned into this thing. Now it's just like we have everyone there, and even just starting the podcast and kind of like being heard all over the world. You know what I mean? And it was like one time we had gotten the email that our podcast, we had the top podcast in like Ireland at once. I'm like,
Yes, yeah,
dude, I'm
yeah.
like, it's like, wow, it's just you just step back and you kind of like look at things, and we can see like the numbers of where people are listening, and just just even when we were at a convention one time, and I was just like sitting there, and then a girl came up and she goes, "Aren't you Brandon from PVD Horror? Aren't you guys PVD Horror?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like kind of looking like, "What the fuck is going on here?" And so it's just growing, you know what I mean, and just being known. So and just being known for just putting on good events, and then just like you said, just doing the show at the Park Ave Theater. You know, everybody's kind of reaching out saying, "Oh, you guys killed it." Oh, or even if they couldn't make it, they're like, "Oh, I want to come to the next one." And so even our events, like whatever we do, the pop-ups, everything, kind of to give back to everybody that's helped us out, just to have a good time. Like
Yeah.
you said, like with my kids coming out and doing things, and for them to realize it and stuff like that. But we've had some low points, you know what I mean? And so like as you can probably, you know what I mean, like you've been there. The drama that we had and all the issues and stuff like that. It is what it is. You tend to get past things and just try to work harder. You know what I mean? Like I think the low point for me, but it was still to try to push forward. I think it was like the year that we were doing the pop up and everything, and it just like the miscommunication of stuff or things that's going a certain way. But just trying to push, you know what I mean? I just wanted everybody to be on the same page, to give 110% because I came into this thing and I want it like whatever I put myself into, I want it to be great. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna half-ass it. I'm not gonna sit there and do anything. So I expect everybody else that's on my team to put the same amount of passion into something. You know what I mean? And I know that over the years things kind of just got lost, you know what I mean? Because it was a lot of times me and you had to put a lot of shit on our back. And it was just like, fuck, like it got really frustrating. And it just got to the point where it was just like, I remember me and you, we just have conversations and then you kind of lose those things because a lot of built up tension and things not being taken care of. And I feel as though over the years, we've kind of lost our friendships of like just being able to kind of like talk about things and do things because it became a business and we lost that focus on friendships with which me and you are back at now.
Yeah.
Like we can text each other and talk about music. We can
Yeah.
talk about anything else. We don't, it's not just about horror. It's not just about PVD horror. You know what I mean? At that point in time, it was like that's all it was because it was just so much bullshit going on
Yeah.
or things not being taken care of how they should have. So it is what it is. Um,
Yeah,
I,
so I mean, it was kind of like that resentment that was building up for a
yeah,
period of time kind of felt like it was like taking over the joy in
yeah,
doing the stuff
definitely.
that we enjoy doing.
Hmm.
Um, so I mean, yeah, that definitely kind of took away from things for a while. So it's nice to kind of be in a
Yeah.
place where you can kind of think a little bit more clear minded and
Hmm.
get yourself back. And yeah, no, you're the community piece has been so big because like I think that was like our first goal was we want to build a horror community in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
And we're still constantly working towards that goal, but it's like just knowing like what we've been able to do in the time we've been able to do it and
Yeah.
just hearing people's feedback like, oh, this is so cool that this is happening in Rhode Island. When people say that one sentence right there, that's the one that I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, thank you. Because that was like the one thing we always used to say, like, we want to see this here. Like, why do we always have to drive to Mass? Why do we always have to
Yep.
drive to New Jersey, Connecticut? Like, why can't we people be doing stuff here? And if they were, because there was some stuff going on, but it just wasn't, I don't know. It just wasn't what exactly we saw as like what
Yeah.
we wanted to do.
Hmm.
So yeah, no, that's awesome.
Yeah. And that's always
Um,
my goal, man. It was just like whenever we would have a project, I would be like, okay, find this project right here. And then I'm down already down the block looking at the next shit. Like, so you know what I mean? It's like that's how I move and that's how I try to sit there and keep things going. Yeah, because it's like it is what it is because I see the bigger picture of where this can go. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm not just gonna sit here and be like, oh yeah, 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 and waste time on that. I'm already down to the next point.
do you have
So
any inspirations within the genre as far as like what like the visions that you've had for what PVD horror is doing or what you hope to be doing? Are there other people that you kind of see doing stuff that you're like, oh yeah, I like the direction they're going, things like that?
uh I don't look into what other people are like really doing in like in our field, because I look at it like in other stuff and how I can cross it over and how I
Yeah.
can sit there and bring it into something else. Like when I see people do stuff in our community, I'm like, oh, that's cool. But like, you know what I mean? If I'm not gonna sit there and say, oh, well, that's what I'm gonna do, because it's like, if like, trust me, like if a lot of people like, because when a lot of things that people are doing now, those were some of our things that we never just, that those are ideas that I had like years ago, and then we just didn't, like, that's what I said, when the miscommunication and everything kind of like was fucked up, we lost those opportunities to do that stuff. And so that's why when I see that shit, I'm like, okay, fine, next move, next move, next move. And so like I just see things from all different angles, from like from all of the other things in the world, and how I can incorporate it to what we're doing, you know.
What's
So
the biggest thing you've learned from doing PVD horror?
the biggest thing I learned about PVD horror is
Maybe even about yourself, if anything.
that, you know what I mean, I think that the biggest thing I learned about myself, I don't know. I How would you describe me as someone that's in PVD horror? That's where, because you, I can't sit there and really say for
Yeah.
myself. You tell me.
Um, Determined,
Yeah.
sometimes stubborn.
Hmm.
um, but very just like driven and creative. Like you'll get an idea in your head and you'll just start to tinker with it. But that's the other thing. Like you don't just do the one thing.
Hmm.
You'll like, because sometimes I'll create something and I'll be like, all right, that's it. But like
Hmm.
you'll do that, but then you don't stop necessarily messing with it until you feel like it's exactly what your view is. So
Yeah.
whatever that is something I always notice. Like, because you'll like throw something out there and then you'll throw another thing out there and be like, no, no,
Hmm.
no, wait. And then so it's like it's almost like you put something out, but then like you go over it 1,000 times more to make sure it's exactly what you
Yeah.
want it to look like. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's how it is. And it's like, you know, it was like the same thing with the pop-ups. And then like even like when we're doing the movies or something, like that's my brain doesn't stop when it comes to like PPD horror. It's like, as I work overnights too. And so it's just like my creativity is just everywhere. I'm like, okay, yeah, we're gonna do this next, we're gonna do this and this. Like I said, I just see into the fucking future, man. And like I said, there's no stopping what we can do. And so it's just like I said, like you just gotta make sure you have certain people around you that are able to run and do the same type of shit as you. And so that's why I said, me and you now, we're able to focus on that shit and kind of like just do it, because like that's why I want you to see that big picture. Like there's nothing that we can't fucking do. You know what I mean?
And we're lucky to have a bunch of people that we're kind of like able to, collab with, and
Yeah.
that also have like similar goals or just kind of want to do stuff that like,
Yeah.
benefits the community as a whole. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah. So it's
Um,
working.
I know we're gonna end in a second, so I want to like end on a note that is something of big interest to you. But like we
Mhm.
always challenge people with like coming up with songs for a playlist, and you're big into music, and I'm
Yeah.
not gonna say songs, but like recommend a couple of like albums that you're listening to or artists that you're listening to currently.
Currently, I'm listening to, fuck, what am I listening to? I'm just listening to a whole bunch of shit. Ah, damn. What was it? The new Lil Yachty album? I reached out to you.
Yep,
Like,
no,
I
I'm
was
liking
never a
that a
big,
lot.
yeah, I was never really a big fan of his, but I loved how he transitioned all his music into like a new sound, you know what I mean? And just
Yep,
not holding back, and then just doing a creative style, kind of like Childish Gambino.
yep.
And so I see his music, and that's the thing. I listen to everything, from rock to rap, R&B. You know, I've been going to like a few concerts with my kids. So I just got done seeing, was this kid Yeet. I'm not really a big fan, but it's like, hey, it's my son's favorite artist, and was it Destroy Lonely? You know, I mean, I'm starting to like kind of like mess around and listen, and it to accept some of those kids' new music and stuff like that. So
Nice. Yeah.
it's funny. So yeah, there's a lot of music. It was Lana Del Rey's new album or something like that.
Yep. Yep.
I know Fall Out Boy just came out with a new album. Just still gonna
And
check
I know you
it out.
have to listen to that one.
Yeah, so there's a lot of shit. So I love all types of music. So I know it's a hard question, and I know I put a lot of people on the spot, so
Now
it's
you're
not
feeling that
easy.
heat.
Yeah, because I'm sitting there like, fuck, I got a lot of fucking music that I like, but it's just up there. So
Is there one or two albums that like just have like impacted you significantly over the years?
yeah, I want to say like Jay-Z, like the Dynasty album. It's really underrated because it was supposed to be like a collaboration album for him for Rockefeller, but like a lot of those songs have like a big impact on my life and everything like that because it was just like certain rappers at the time. It was like some people just are real and kind of say how they feel, or like Nas, Illmatic, or there's any Jay Z album, Nas, like DMX, Wu Tang. There's so many albums. You know what I mean? I think a lot of stuff plays an impact into my life, but I can't just narrow it down to like just one thing
Yeah.
or two. It's
All
I'm
right. That
everywhere.
works. That works. All right, Brandon. Thank you for letting me put you on the spot with all these questions and kind of fielding whatever was thrown at you. Good job.
No doubt.
All right, guys. So we will do flip the script and have one of these episodes for me in a couple of weeks. But in the meantime, thank you for tuning in, and we hope you guys all have a great night.
Take it easy.